all at once here. Here we go.
With short week, is there any different pitching plan?
I don't have the answer to that yet. I know a little bit more about exactly what we're doing here today. We took yesterday off. We finished the game Sunday, and everybody was pretty worn out at the end of the weekend, and it was Mother's Day, so we got out of here to go celebrate moms. And took yesterday off and getting our ducks in order today. We'll have an attack plan, so get through today and kind of see where we're at, see how the kids are feeling, take into account the one less day in between starts and all those things. We have to always check on the kids, always. So sorry if that was going to be the first thing for you. Not being elusive, just don't have the answer yet.
I imagine this time of year with school being out, guys are around here a little bit more often. Is this kind of an exciting portion of the year that's coming up?
I think so. I think it's enjoyable for the players. School's such an important part of what they do. It's such a demanding piece of their life, and when you can get that past you, it's a good feeling. It frees up some mental space. I think the stress of just for a lot of guys too. Some guys, certainly freshmen or first year guys, this is one of the more normal academic years they've had in a while, just in returning to full-time in-person school for some and adjusting to the college level for others. And just so there's just a lot of things that go on academically that when you can clear the slate and get the semester established and finished, it frees you up. And then they always like to hang out around here, that's for sure. They like to be here. So that's good. But yeah, I think there's some mental clarity that comes with the school year being over. More time they can spend together, hopefully this time of year. I know they've enjoyed spending time eating together. We do a little bit more team meal stuff this time of year when we're kind of all on the same exact schedule, and been on the road a little bit, and we'll be on the road here, coming up. So yeah, hopefully those are all good things as far as just continuing to bring the group together and allowing the kids to kind of rally around one another and enjoy this.
What's your message to them pertaining to Bedlam? Do you want them to think it's just another series? Do you want them to put more emphasis on this in-state rivalry? What's kind of your message to them in that aspect?
Well, I always tell people this, baseball, when it's played at its highest level, you're under control, you're focused, you're on the perfect balance of relaxed and yet focused, intense and yet calm. And so that's the spot you're always wanting to play the game at, always. Doesn't matter who you're playing against, you're constantly trying to be in the performance zone that allows you to be the absolute best version of you. So that's how you want to play the game, for sure. And that really doesn't matter who you're playing against. Now, if you ask yourself, do you want to win the games? Absolutely. Are they meaningful games? Absolutely they are. But how you play them and the way you prepare to play them should always be the same. I didn't play at a high enough level in basketball or football, but I do remember high school football. Sometimes a little extra adrenaline, a little extra thump in your step, a little extra collision in your mind, a little extra run through the guy in front of you might make you a better player in some instances where contact's involved. But in baseball, where there's the ability to breathe, to take a little off the pitch, to add a little bit to the pitch, to hit the ball, there's sometimes harder and compete firmer doesn't necessarily lead to better performance. So that's kind of where you're trying to not let adrenaline or over compete get in the way of some skills, whereas maybe other times being a little more physical, a little more rough might get your body engaged and you might feel that. Baseball, you got to kind of keep that perfect balance of focus, razor sharp focus, and the right physical movements without getting too amped up. So the games matter a great deal, of course, but how you prepare to play them. I probably wouldn't be a very good coach if you sat here and said, we'll play all these other games this way, and then all of a sudden I'm gonna try to ask you to play these three differently. That just wouldn't be in line with a good approach.
Is that balance different for everybody? You're looking at a guy like Chase, I think maybe his balance is maybe a little different than Rock's, who's a little more outspoken. Is that tough to manage all the different balances at the same time?
Yeah, that's why you have different personalities, That's why it's a team. Team's made up all different kinds of guys that bring a lot to the table. You need Chase's steadiness. You definitely enjoy Rock's presence. He brings something that others may not. And so hopefully when all those things combined, the team has a good energy to it. And each guy does his part, right? And so yeah, there's always been great teams always have a variety of personalities and characters that make them who they are. And you want each kid to play, in their own special way, without getting carried away. And some guys lead out front, some guys lead from the middle, some guys lead quietly from the back. Everybody has a role. As long as everybody does their part, that the team can operate at a high level. So yeah, I embrace those guys that have a little bit more front of the line about their personality. Yeah.
As someone who's been through the rivalry a bunch of times as a player and also as a coach,
Yeah.
10 years now. Does it resonate anymore with you? Is it
Yeah.
any more sentimental?
I don't know for sentimentals what I would use. I enjoy the competition. I enjoy the fact that it's meaningful. I enjoy the fact that usually it's usually really well attended games. So it's a big deal. I enjoy the fact that for years and years and years these games have been played in front of typically the biggest crowds of the year. Usually the Bedlam series was always something that as a player, at least when I was a kid, you played because it would be the first time you'd play in front of 5,000 or 6,000 people, whether it's Tulsa or Oklahoma City. So that was always fun because it kind of felt like you were doing something that was a big deal, And college baseball in the old days didn't get a lot of attention until April, May, and that's usually when the series was played. So that was always a marker on the schedule, something fun to look forward to, something people cared about. I remember All Sports Stadium. I remember Old Driller Park. I didn't remember the transition to Bricktown, and obviously the games have been played in Tulsa at the new stadium there, and most recently now they've been played on campus. So all those things, you remember them. Countless meetings across the field, lots of great players and coaches. So yeah, I remember them all. It's part of a great history between the two.
I know multiple times when we've spoken, you said you prefer the rivalry to be played on campus as opposed to neutral site. Why is that?
Well, because when we're the home team in the conference schedule, to forfeit 3 home games to play at a neutral site is taking 3 home competitions away from our team at home and away from our fan base. And we didn't build this facility to go take the 3 marquee games away from Stillwater and place them in other towns. This is our field, this is our facility, these are our fans, this is our campus. We built this place for our team, and I think when we have a home game, when we're the technically designated home team for the series, I believe should be played here. That's the reason why we've hustled that. When they invented the rotating Bedlam series back in the 90s, I think is when it started. It was at a time where it generated revenue for both baseball programs, when revenue was a critical need back then to take the games from Tulsa and Oklahoma City. But I think we're in a different place now for why that was created. And this is our home. This is where we want to play our home series, and I'm totally fine with playing the home series this week in Norman, all 3 games. I think it's great.
What do you think the future of the rivalry looks like at this point?
We get to play them next year. I know that. I've seen the schedule. And then beyond that, it'll just be a matter of what makes sense. We're certainly open-minded to playing if that's something that the Sooners would like to continue to do, as long as it's good for both teams and fits the schedule. I don't see any scenario that where a 3-game series will ever be played again, just because you only get 3 or 4 of them to start the year, and that's week 3, week 4 of February, week 1 and 2 of March. Then the conference is going to open for both schools, and it's going to run from that date all the way to the very end of the season. So those are all conference weekends. And typically, as you guys know, late February, early March in Oklahoma, the weather is very much flip of the coin. So to try to play a 3-game series at that time, nobody comes that time of year anyway, right? So that I have 0 interest in, and I'm sure they feel the same way.
So you think it'd be midweek?
Yeah,
So
if that's, like I said, you're just asking me my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't have any official conversations, but that would make the most sense anyway.
do you think then, in your opinion, this transition would maybe see it back to a Bricktown or a Tulsa instead of at a home field?
No, not for us. Like I said, we play here.
The way things are trending right now, it's late in the season, you want to be playing your best ball. Do you feel like you're getting close?
Well, I'm proud of the way the kids have continually adjusted as the season's gone on, evolved, gotten better, fought through different things that have come our way, injuries, guys stepping in. Really have admired the team-mindedness that a lot of kids have put on display in that course of 50 some odd games to get to this point. It's amazing how fast the season goes, and it's amazing how quickly things happen. Just the other day, I remember walking home plate and grabbing Aiden after he hurt his thumb. And now today he gets to face live pitching for the first time. And so there's an in-season injury, a surgery, and a return to play. And you just think about what kids go through on behalf of the team and how hard they fight to get on the field. And you can sit there and say the same thing with Nolan and so many guys, and then you watch your catcher. work his tail off behind the plate and catch a good bulk of the innings, and to see Ian return. So you watch kids fight through things to get back on the field on behalf of the team. You watch the way kids compete on behalf of the team. You watch the way guys perform on behalf of the team. And those are the things that make you as a coach believe in them, because you've seen day after day after day their willingness to dial it up for the team. So yes, I feel good about the team at this stage. How we're playing is good. We've taken on lots of different styles of games. We've found ways to win different types of games, but it's a good team. I believe in them a lot. Do I think we can put together a great run? Yes, I do. I believe in that very much.
You said Aiden taking the IVP. Do you have?
Well, it's just an example of
it's
just an example of watching a kid get off to a really good start, the blow of being injured, and just the fight to get back on the field on behalf of his team, or at least get back in position to contribute. You've watched that with so many of your players. So it's things like that that give you reason to be highly, highly optimistic that when you can get all that good energy back together, that the team is in a position to make a good run. So I appreciate that about these kids. It's been a very character revealing season for many of them.
And in the past too, you've seen guys come off Tommy John, like Carson, that can have a late impact on a season and a postseason run.
Yep.
Do you feel like that's kind of an impact he can have as he's started to hit 5 innings the last couple starts?
Yeah,
things
I
like
thought
that?
the ORU start was good, real good, and the K-State start was good, to go along with the outstanding offensive season he's put together in right field. I think what he's doing has been very impressive, and I'm seeing his pitching legs start to return underneath him. His skill and feel for pitching is starting to return, and he's doing all that while also starting in right field and hitting in the 3-hole. So, man, that's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to be the 3-hole hitter on a college baseball team. It's a lot to be a starting pitcher, and it's a whole lot to do both. And I'm just really proud of him for the way he's embraced that. So, yes, I think he's starting to find it.
Did you learn how to manage a 2-way player with Nolan? Was that kind of the example how to manage a 2-way player?
I tell you what, it's tough, because the only thing you think about every day is what is the right thing for this athlete today, for himself, his health, our team, and strategically how to use that, but also not forget that this is double duty. And you have to think about that often. It was the reason why we made the decision to move Nolan to the outfield this season going in, was to try to reduce the number of intermediate throws and different slotted throws that he was making at third base a year ago. Same thing with Carson. Carson was actually an infielder coming out of high school, a very good one. Made the move to the outfield to do the same with him. So, yeah, you're always trying to understand and listen to your players' bodies. I don't think they like me anymore, because every day I go to both of them and say, how you doing today? How you feeling? They just look at me and roll their eyes, because I'm going to get the same answer. But you have to ask, because some guy throws 85 pitches and runs the bases, and he wakes up the next day, how you feeling today? Well, he might feel a little different than the guy that, say, just pitched, or the guy that just hit. So you have to ask them, but they're pretty unique, and they play catch together, and they have a little bit of funny running joke with each other. They both have red hair, so they have this little kind of cool, big brother, little brother, 2-way player thing is funny. They embrace it, and I would sure take on the challenge of managing kids that good every chance I could get.
I'm sure Phil Nevin has to go to Shohei every day and ask him too how he feels.
It's just, I mean, it's like I said, they're remarkable athletes. I think they're both remarkable. Yep.
What's it mean to be within striking distance of West Virginia atop the Big 12 headed to Norman this week?
Well, you always want to be in position to play for something meaningful. So, get to the last weekend of the year, that's how you always want to be. You want to be fighting for something. Like I told the kids, and I've told you guys this, if we win and play good and prepare right, then we keep putting ourselves in position for the next game to matter. So that's the best approach day by day to stay relevant. You just keep doing that until the final bell rings and see where you're at. But yeah, it's absolutely meaningful to go into the final weekend and compete for something that's one of your goals every year. That's to compete at the top of your league and win the Big 12.
What have you thought about the depth of the league this year?
Like always, underappreciated, poorly portrayed. You can lose a series in this league and everybody acts like it's the end of the world. You get swept in other leagues and people say it's a tough weekend. I mean, I think West Virginia having a really good team is no shock to any of us. And a much improved Kansas State team right now is no shock to me. nobody would want to play Texas Tech. They're very good. TCU has got some of the best young freshman talent in the country, and they're playing a ton of them. They're a very dangerous team. I think we have a fine ball club. OU, I think, is a team that nobody would want to see coming around the corner. They've got good players. They've got good pedigree. They're well coached, so they have a lot going for them. The University of Texas is just the University of Texas, quietly sitting there winning numerous baseball games, and Kansas is a better team than probably they've been in quite some time. So I think it's very good, but again, how we create the narrative, or again, if you think about, well, I'll put it to you like this: you encounter umpires that umpire both leagues, our league and the SEC, because that's the way umpiring is. You work across multiple leagues. And you'll just say, hey, where you worked lately? Oh, worked over here, worked over here. Oh, that's great. How's that new stadium over there? Hey, how are the teams over there? Oh, they're good. Just like these, though. So the perception and the difference in probably each league and the difference is, I think it's incredibly minimal. I think there's a ton of parity. I think there's a ton of good teams. I think the gap between the 3 or 4 most elite teams and the rest of the teams is a smaller line than maybe it's ever been before. But I do think if you just really, I vote on the coaches poll every week, and I sit down for 20 minutes, and I literally say to myself, okay, who's the best team out there right now? Like if you had to match up this weekend, who would be the toughest 3-game series you could possibly find? And you just start going down. And there's 3 or 4 or 5 teams that really stand out. They're 3-man starting rotations elite, or their offense and their pitching's bound, or whatever. But then when you get past 4, 5, and 6, everyone starts to show where their vulnerabilities may lie. And I think behind team 6, 7, there's a lot of really good baseball teams. And so I think there's a ton of parity, a lot of good teams, and I think the Big 12 teams fit right there side by side with all those teams in that discussion.
You said that parity is as much as it's been in a while. Do you know why that is?
I do. I've taken a very close look at it. There's 22 and 23-year-old baseball players across numerous college rosters right now. Numerous, which never used to be the case. That's due to a shortened major league draft. It's due to extra years due to COVID. It's due to the movement of players across different programs. Players who may have excelled at a lower levels, for lack of a better term, have transferred up. So you've seen countless new things go on that have created an older swell of really good talent. That's started to level out. You've seen rosters that got a little bit backloaded. Those good players start to move out, and then other rosters get elevated because of that. And so there are more and more really good experienced teams, older players, and deeper teams as a result of COVID, the transfer portal, and the Major League Draft being reduced from 40 rounds to 5, and then from 5 only back up to 20, and now it's been at 20 for 2 years. You do the math on the number of players that are not matriculated into professional baseball compared to a normal year. So you take 20 less rounds of high school talent that may have signed pro that's now in college, 20 less rounds of college talent that would have signed after their junior year that are still housed in the college game. And you do that over multiple years, you're seeing a lot more good, high quality players in the college system. And then inside the college system, they've moved around because there's now ways for that to happen. So that's how you've gotten to this point.
Is that good for college baseball, or the pitfalls?
Yeah, there's all kinds of unintended consequences when things like that happen. Nobody planned any of this out. This just happened. I mean, nobody planned COVID, that happened. Nobody took into account all these other moving parts that have affected college athletics, which you guys cover in other sports, so I don't have to sit here and tell you about them. You know what they are, but none of these things were like laid out in order and said, let's phase this in. Then we'll phase this in, and slowly but surely it just all kind of came crashing together. So you see dynamics now that never happened before. Add to that the Major League Baseball draft shortening, and it changed how many kids are making their way to college. So it takes some time to sort it out because it's changed everything that we do.
Josh, when you were recruiting Isaac, did you know he kind of had that presence to be unfazed and not let the pressure get to him, or did that surprise you?
His junior college coach told me this is one of the most wonderful kids I've ever coached, and his coach has coached a long time. And he's one of the most honest, straightforward, old-fashioned coaches I've ever been around, Darren Burroughs. And he said he'll make your whole team better. He's an elite worker. He's an elite human being. He's one heck of a pitcher. He couldn't have come with more definitive, strong recommendation about who he was. So did I have an idea he was a special kid? I did. But not until you get a chance to coach them can you appreciate how they handle themselves when the game starts.
How is Colton and analytics and everything? How has that impacted you guys?
That used to take hours and hours and hours and hours of watching film with a pencil and drawing dashed lines and all the things that you would do, and you felt like you're really coaching. And now Colton just he's awesome. Colton does a great job. He helps us immensely. All the teams now have access to information, so I think it's more what you do with the information you have access to that really would separate your use of data and analytics and video and all those things. He's great. I love him to death. And Jack Montgomery helps him as well. So two very sharp, smart young men that help us understand what information's out there and decide how we should use it.
How have you embraced it? Because I know
Yeah.
you've had to do that, but now you've got to learn new things. And
I'm a stat rat. I always
Yeah.
have been, ever since I was a little kid. So I've always believed in statistics. I think they tell a story. I've always believed in trends and patterns because I think they're real, and I love it. I think there are no secrets anymore in baseball. If you're a player, you got a hole. You got to cover your hole up. If there's a pitch you don't hit well, you need to work on it because the other team knows. If you hook the ball in the same spot, you got to work on it because the other team knows. If you throw the same pitch in the same count every time, you got to adjust a little bit because the other team knows. So I think it's good. I like it. I personally enjoy it.
Last couple questions.
do you feel like you're catching up a little bit too in a way? Because I mean, it matriculates down from major leagues, but you know, other programs have done this and things like that. I'm not catch up, maybe the wrong term.
No,
but you feel
I
like,
don't think so. Actually, I think
like arms race almost.
we were deeply invested in information, looking for an edge a long time ago. And the reason I say catching up, just because I would see the paper reports that would get faxed around and sent around, and I'd look at them and go, "That's not what we're looking for. That's useless. I don't need to know how tall and what hand they hit. I know that.
Yeah.
I want to know what pitch they can't hit. I want to know when they hit it in the air, where does it go? When they hit it on the ground, where does it go? I want to know what, So we've been chasing information since day one. I worked at a program before I got here in Vanderbilt that was way out in front of the game. So I was exposed by getting to be on a great staff to a lot of new ideas even back then. Yeah, and Coach Walton's very, very, very smart and very data driven.
Last one.